Not all dragons are created equally, but every species in How to Train Your Dragon brings something special to the table, and has a unique strength suited to their lifestyle and habitat. But what if there was a dragon with no strength whatsoever, that had just the most pitiful abilities from across the franchise? In today's video, we're creating the weakest dragon in How to Train Your Dragon history, by combining 12 key traits from other dragons in the franchise. But before we dive in, there's one rule. I can't pick 2 traits from one dragon. That means I can't just stack the Terrible Terror or the Fireworm across multiple categories, even if they'd be obvious picks. Okay, so let's begin with size, which determines the presence our dragon will have and its ability to intimidate its opponents. The Fireworm is a pretty easy pick here. It barely even reaches 2 inches long. What redeems the Fireworm is that it can produce an intense flame, and they typically live in massive colonies led by a queen, which allows these tiny dragons to overwhelm you through sheer numbers. But I control our dragon's firepower, so without a strong attacking option, our dragon is going to be so small there's no way that anyone looks at it and feels threatened. Every other trait we stack on top of this is going to have to fit inside something you could lose in tall grass. Now here, I'm only taking the Fireworm's size and not its body type, because these little guys are actually built pretty proportionately. So for body type, I'm picking the Eruptodon. Now once again, this dragon's disproportionately large head and stocky build perfectly suit its job of sitting on a volcano and eating lava. But take the Eruptodon into the open and it becomes an absolute mess of a creature with legs that are too short to run, arms that can barely grab anything, and a head that occupies half its body. The one saving grace for the Eruptodon is that it's so tough that nothing can hurt it, but the dragon I'm designing won't be so lucky. But before that, I need to give this dragon its flying abilities, and that's a bit tricky. I could just straight up make the dragon wingless like the Silk Spanner, but that feels like cheating. However, there are only a few dragons known for being pretty bad at flying, and the best fit for our job is the Gronkle. Now, the Gronkle isn't a bad dragon by any stretch, but its wings are comically small relative to its body and barely generate enough lift to keep it in the air. According to the Dragon Manual, the Gronkle has the slowest flight speed of any dragon in the franchise, so give that weakness to our already tiny, disproportionate body, and you've got a dragon that can't escape even the smallest threats. But honestly, we need to make this thing even more vulnerable, so we need to make a pick for armor, or rather, the lack of it. For this, I'm bringing the Bone Napper. And I know what you're thinking. The one we've seen on screen is actually pretty terrifying, but that near-complete suit of armor the Bone Napper had is not its natural hide. The moment the Bone Napper loses its armor, it's extremely soft and fragile underneath, with the Dragon Manual describing it as being as tough as a featherless chicken. Now, since the Bone Napper is naturally a large and strong dragon, it can pick up and put together a solid suit of armor. But with a Fireworm's build, this guy isn't even protecting itself from a strong gust of wind. And for the next trait, I have Endurance, and this isn't just about taking a hit and staying standing, it's about whether a dragon has the sheer will to keep going when things get hard. And this dragon absolutely does not, because I'm giving it the endurance of a Hot Purple. The Hot Purple is famously the laziest dragon in the entire franchise, often choosing to just fall asleep mid-flight than actually exert itself. And that's not an exaggeration. There are documented instances of Hot Purples simply dozing off while airborne and plummeting toward the ground. Grump, Gobber's personal Hot Purple, is famous for this exact trait. He'll begin a task, decide that effort is for other dragons, and immediately crash somewhere inconvenient. Once again, this isn't an issue for the Hot Purple since it's tough as nails and can melt iron with its flames. But endurance on this scale is the kind of thing that gets much stronger dragons killed. Next up, we have Intelligence, and this was a bit difficult for me at first, because while few dragons are on the level of human intelligence, most of them have some basic strategic understanding. But that's when I remembered the Gobsucker, which easily takes the spot of the least intelligent dragon out there. These dragons are so stupid that they've been documented mistaking ordinary rocks for their own eggs, sitting on them dutifully, and watching for a hatchling that will never come. Forget dragon hunters or cunning predators like the Speed Stinger. The Gobsucker can be deceived by things that don't move, speak, or even breathe. What saves the Gobsucker from extinction is its tremendous strength, tough armor, corrosive acid breath, and toxic gas attacks. But not only does our dragon have none of these, it has now lost the capacity to form basic strategies or learn from mistakes, which is fine because it's about to make a lot of them. When it comes to raw physical strength, the bottom of the list is surprisingly competitive. The perfect pick would have been the Fireworm, but we've already taken that. So for strength, I'm going with the Night Terror. This dragon is one of the smallest in the franchise, but lives in large packs led by an alpha. Once separated from its pack, the Night Terror is just a walking target, and can even be overpowered by a regular-sized human. So our dragon now has the body strength of the weakest individual attacker in the franchise. If it wanted to pick up a pebble, it would probably need to ask for help. Now we get to firepower, and this is an interesting one, because even the worst fire in the franchise is still fire. Once again, I could cheat with a dragon that can't even breathe fire, but even those dragons have powerful replacements like acid, sound blast, or ice breath. Instead, I'm going with the Sand Wraith's firepower, even if this is a bit of a technicality. The Sand Wraith can breathe fire, but it's so weak that the Sand Wraith eats sand and forms hardened balls coated in flames. Now our dragon doesn't have the ability to form these explosive sand balls, so all it's left with is a weak flame that barely has the range to be a threat. We've got all the combat traits sorted except for reflexes. Now, I've already used up most of the slow and lazy dragons like the Gronkle, Hot Burple, and Eruptodon, so this one needs a bit of creativity. There's one dragon left that had reflexes and survival instincts so bad that it was hunted to extinction by the Vikings, the Buffalord. This dragon had no natural predators, and was a gentle giant that just did its own thing until Vikings realized that its saliva could cure the scourge of Odin. The only reason one Buffalord still lives on is its massive size and strength, two advantages that our dragon does not have. Naturally, with reflexes that bad, you'd hope the dragon could at least fly away quickly, but I have a pick for speed that puts that out of the question. For speed, I've selected the Sea Gronkle, and there's a good reason for this. The thing with the other boulder class dragons like the Rock Spitter is that they have displayed the ability to move fast in combat situations or emergencies, but the Sea Gronkle is a mostly peaceful dragon that scavenges for food on the seafloor instead of actively hunting its prey. In fact, their bodies are so slow it takes a Sea Gronkle a few days to digest the fish it eats. Now at this point, our dragon isn't so much flying as it is slowly drifting toward the ground with occasional bursts of intention. But what it still needs is a sensory system so bad that it can't even accurately perceive the world that it's destroying. So for senses, I've selected the Snifflehide, which has some of the most impaired vision in the Dragon Kingdom. It's effectively near blind, relying almost entirely on smell and hearing to navigate its environment. While those secondary senses are reasonably developed, the moment you put a Snifflehide somewhere bright or create any kind of visual confusion, it becomes completely disoriented. The Snifflehide still manages to get by though, since it's incredibly intelligent and can use reasoning and deduction to fill the gaps created by its weak eyesight. But with the intelligence of a gobsucker, our dragon can no longer adapt to what's coming. It can only smell it and panic. And finally, we get our favorite pick, the wild card. For this, I'm picking one unique trait that isn't covered by the previous categories and still ends up making our dragon's life more miserable. And that trait is the Threadtail's Poison. Now you might think that poison is actually the perfect ability to give our dragon a shot at survival, but the unique problem with the Threadtail is that it's allergic to its own poison. Think about it. The Threadtail is constantly suffering from an immune response in its own body that causes intense, constant itching and discomfort that weakens the creature. Threadtails are forced to roll around in dragonberry bushes to calm down their allergies, which is a luxury that our dragon is simply too weak to afford. So there you have it, the weakest dragon that Burke has ever seen, or more accurately, that Burke has ever accidentally stepped on. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe so you never miss another incredible How to Train Your Dragon theory.